everybody. This is Keri Wilmot. I am an occupational therapist here with the Understood team, and I want to welcome you all today to our Facebook Live on sensory challenges. I'm so glad that you're here. So while we're giving everybody a chance to kind of log in and get situated, let me tell you just a little bit about myself. So again, my name is Keri Wilmot. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, and I've been an OT working with kids with learning and thinking differences for almost 23 years. I kind of know a lot about some of these sensory challenges. I wrote a book for teachers called Wired Differently, A Teacher's Guide to Sensory Challenges. I am the mother of a 13-year-old son who has ADHD. But one of the most exciting things that I love doing with Understood is that I am an expert in the Wonder app. So if you're not familiar with the Wonder app, it's WUNDER, and that's an app whether you have Apple or Android, you can download onto your mobile device, and it's a safe space for you to go in and join different groups and ask questions. So I'm the group expert host of the Sensory Challenges and Movement group. So, and if you don't know how to log in, there actually should be a little link on your screen. It should say open link. If you go ahead and tap that link, it'll lead you to the spot where you can download the app, and it should allow you to do it while I continue to talk. So again, thank you all for coming. And so I just want to get an idea of who is here with us today. So if, go ahead and drop down in the comment section below. Are you a parent? Are you a grandparent? Are you a teacher? Are you an adult who's here to learn about sensory challenges for yourself? Definitely, use that chat feature at the bottom and let us know who's here. And then we're going to take it kind of a little step further. So if you're the parent of a child in elementary school, go ahead, use those emojis at the bottom and tap the like button. Perfect. Now, if you're the parent of a child who might be in middle school or high school, use your emojis at the bottom and tap the heart button. And if you're an adult who's here maybe to learn about some strategies for yourself or to learn about what sensory challenges are, then go ahead and hit that smiling emoji. Awesome. Good. I see some hearts, some thumbs ups. Perfect. Again, as we're talking, use that chat feature at the bottom, drop your questions in there, use those emojis. If you hear something that resonates with you or that you've experienced before, let us know. It'll help, improve our, make sure we meet everybody's needs who's here today. So the first thing I want to talk about are just some things we might see with kids with learning and thinking differences. So maybe we see that kids have a hard time controlling their energy level. They're not able to just kind of sit down and perform on demand. Some kids might have meltdowns. Some people get overwhelmed where they kind of shut off and they're not able to do the next thing. You can get frustrated with transitions and get, really mad having to stop one thing and start another. You can seek a lot of sensory input or maybe act impulsively with your hands or your body, reach out and touch things you're not supposed to or kind of bump into people. And some other things we might see are that, kids or adults don't like certain sounds. They maybe have texture preferences in their clothing where they only like to wear certain things. They don't like smells. They might be picky eaters, or conversely, they actually might be people who like to put things in their mouth that aren't food. So what if I told you that a lot of these things that we see with people with learning and thinking differences could actually be sensory challenges? And so let me explain a little bit more. I think this might make a little bit more sense. You have to imagine that there's a traffic cop inside your brain. And as things happen in the world around it, the traffic cop has to organize all that information through our senses. So we have our 5 typical senses: sight, taste, touch, smell, and hearing. But as occupational therapists, we actually make it a little more complicated. We add 3 other ones for you to learn about today. One of them is your vestibular sense, and that's having receptors that are in your inner ear, and they give you it's your sense of movement that allows you to have balance. The next sense is called proprioception, and that's when you have receptors in your muscles and joints that allow you to learn about where your body is in space. It's called body and space awareness. So I can tell you that as I'm sitting here looking at the camera, my feet are crossed underneath the desk, but I'm not looking at them, right? I can tell you what my body is doing without having to rely on my vision to tell you. So that's having a good sense of body and space awareness. And the last sense is called interoception. This one's one of the newest ones. I didn't even learn about it in college. And it's about having receptors in your organs. And that's those organs and those receptors give us information about, telling our body, are we hungry? Are we thirsty? Do we have to go to the bathroom? Or are we feeling pain appropriately? So again, that traffic cop, it has to organize all that information as you go throughout the day and throughout the world. And you have to think about certain activities that are really, they might stress your system. And when things happen, like let's say you hear an alarm, you hear the alarm, your brain says, oh, I hear an alarm. Okay, what do I do? It's a false alarm. Okay, I need to just get in line and exit the building, right? So something stressful happens, the brain helps you process it, and you choose a response that is what is typical for that age or for that for that situation. But for kids with sensory challenges, or adults too, we don't get that same kind of regulated response, right? We get fight, flight, or fright type reactions that lead to a lot of those kinds of behaviors that we talked about before, right? When the system gets stressed, we might see being overwhelmed, running, being impulsive, crying, covering your ears, and really, having some of those sensory overreactions. So as an adult, maybe over time, you've learned how to regulate your sensory system. You maybe have a box of fidget toys that you fidget with that helps you focus. You have a job that, allows you to take breaks throughout the day. You avidly work out at 6 o'clock in the morning. You can buy those clothes that really make you feel good, right? You have the ability over time, you've learned to accommodate for those sensory challenges. But the hard part for kids is that they don't have as much control, right? They have to, do things throughout the day. And usually that involves going to school and having to perform kind of on demand, doing things that are difficult. They're in a building, it's large, it's loud, there's bright lights, there's different smells in a cafeteria. They're being asked to do things that are challenging for them. And over the course of the day, as there's more and more events, right, that traffic cop is just like, I can't coordinate all of it, so I'm going to react. And I might not react in the expected way. I might be frustrated. I might have a meltdown. I might, get overwhelmed. I might shut off. So that's kind of like the crux of kind of like how sensory challenges can impact kids and why we might get a lot of those reactions. So I suppose you might have some questions that you've thought about as I've been saying all this, or maybe there were things that resonated with you as I said that. So if you want to go ahead and drop any of your questions into the chat below, the team is helping me moderate here, so they're going to send some questions or make sure if I missed anything. Okay, so one of the questions that we have is, what would an OT do to help my child with a sensory challenge? Okay, so as occupational therapists, we, a lot of times kids get referred to us at different ages. A lot of times, actually, we see kids that are referred to us around like 3 or 4. They come to us for these sensory challenges first, and then as they get more testing and parents get more information, we sometimes find that sort of segues into a diagnosis like ADHD, because sensory challenges can coexist with other diagnoses like ADHD and autism. And so we would do an evaluation, and we were trained in looking at kids' motor skills, because generally kids with sensory challenges, it's so impactful on their development that they are most likely not developing their fine motor skills or their gross motor skills or their handwriting skills as they typically should, because all these sensory experiences are impacting their ability to perform. So we would evaluate kids, we use standardized testing, and we're able to determine whether or not kids are eligible for services or not. And there's 2 ways to do that. One, you might actually get services through your public school system, but you can also get services for kids outside of the school district and use your medical insurance. There's usually local clinics or hospitals that have therapists that can do evaluations outside of school. And then to look at sensory processing challenges, we get a lot of information from parents. We ask a lot of questions. If we're lucky enough to work in a school district, then we have the ability to go into a classroom and watch kids and see like, oh, are they overwhelmed? Okay, if they're overwhelmed, what kind of strategies can we use in the classroom setting to help them regulate? Do we need to give them breaks? Okay, if we give them a break, what's that break going to look like? Do they, what are the kinds of movement experiences that particular child likes that we know has a positive impact on their ability to regulate and focus? And we know that deep pressure and heavy work are some of those kinds of activities that help kids feel good. So, it's a lot of times that comes through physical exercise, like push-ups and things like that, where they can really activate a lot of those receptors, and it actually has a positive benefit on their ability to calm down and regulate. And so, we're available to, help create those strategies that's part of a sensory diet. And that's the personalized plan that is put together for each individual child based upon what we're seeing and how they're reacting to all these sensory experiences in the world, with the goal to be to, find the activities that help them ultimately calm down so that they can pay attention and focus and perform. So I know that that's kind of overwhelming and a lot, but if anybody has any additional questions, I'm seeing another question about, will the app be available in other countries? And the answer is no, because it centers around US laws, but you can turn them toward, so you can join the Facebook group, which is how you're here today watching us with this Facebook Live. So unfortunately it's not available in other countries, but definitely continue to join in here on Facebook to get more information. Okay, another question. How do I know if my child is struggling with sensory challenges? Okay, that's kind of a tricky question. Kids it's interesting because you can actually have kids that don't necessarily struggle as much at school as they do at home, or vice versa. We have a lot of kids who are sort of able to keep it together for a period of time, and they kind of make it through the school day, and then they come home at the end of the day and they sort of like don't know what to do. They might kind of like explode. They're just having a hard time regulating their emotions. It's hard for them to do homework. It's hard for them to get through their routines. So a lot of times, like if you're experiencing some of those struggles after school, when it comes to the after school routines, is one way that you might know they would have sensory challenges. Another way might be tied into like sleep. Lots of kids with sensory challenges struggle with sleep, falling asleep, staying asleep, remaining asleep through the night, waking up on time. When they wake up, it takes them a little bit longer to become more alert so that they can participate. And then, a lot of times we see it in things like their daily routine. So yes, it can be hard for them to get through from one activity to another, but you might get a lot of resistance around things like brushing their teeth, combing their hair, washing their hair, wearing certain clothing, all those sensory reactions to a lot of those will come up throughout the course of their daily routine. Picky eaters, they don't like food textures. And so a lot of those overreactions will occur just kind of throughout the natural course of the day. And that's how you would know. Okay. I'm seeing another question here of, would sensory issues include something like a child not being able to learn to tie their shoes, or is that some other root cause? Great question. So yes, and it can be related. There are some kids that struggle learning how to tie their shoes just because they don't have the fine motor skill to be able to do that. So that's number one. You have to be able to have all the muscles developed in your hand and the ability to motor plan and coordinate using two hands together to get all those multiple steps down. Then there's the additional component of the sensory processing piece. And if you become overwhelmed with all those multiple step activities, then yes, activities or things like tying your shoelaces is going to be even trickier. So we first want to rule out, like, that's why we do evaluations, right? We want to know where do those children, like, where does that child's skill level land first, and then we know more, like if their fine motor skills are adequate, and then we know, okay, the issue with shoe tying is really probably around their ability to manage all these steps and to stay organized doing it. And but there also can be kids that struggle with it from both perspectives. And I have another question. How to help with sensory overload? That's the tricky part, because a lot of times, as OTs, what we get used to and helping to train parents is we start looking for the patterns on when it might happen. So we're able to watch kids in environments and see, like, over time, like, we know that this type of event is going to lead to them being overloaded. So what can we do to prepare for that? And a lot of times I really encourage parents to do a lot of preparation ahead of time. When kids are overloaded and they're frustrated, you're kind of in that situation, sort of, in my experience, like running damage control. Like, they're not in a position to be able to usually process all that information right away, and you need to kind of sort of calm them down, give them a quiet space to go to, things to fidget with, like lower the stimulation. Some kids like darker spaces, things like that, so that they can calm down and then get to that point where they're regulated again, and then go on with their day. And as their day goes on, that's when you can go back and process and say, okay, it looked like you had a hard time when you were asked to do your homework when you got home, and this led to you just needing to take some time to self-regulate. So a lot of what I, again, encourage parents to do is really talk about those things when kids are calm, so that if they're able to tell you, yeah, I really was frustrated about that, and then you can work together to kind of come up with a plan about how you would attack that the next time to maybe reduce the likelihood that it would lead to that overreaction. So for something like homework, you might say, okay, maybe it's too hard for you to come right home and sit down at the table and do your work. How about you take 15 to 20 minutes and do something you like that's, allows you to calm down and relax. We'll set a timer for that. And when your 20 minutes is up, come get a snack at the table, and then we'll finish your homework. So it's really kind of giving feedback about what you're seeing, helping kids understand their emotions, about like when they get frustrated or how they get frustrated, and really teaching them with different strategies, like making different choices in their movement, with using fidget toys, with whatever those feel-good sensory things are throughout the day that just positively impact their ability to self-regulate. Can fidget toys help with sensory issues? Yes, fidget toys can absolutely help with sensory issues. I find them to sort of help in the moment, but they aren't necessarily going to prevent kids from getting overwhelmed all the time. It's kind of one of those things that allows, fidget toys are like squishy balls and stretchy bands and putty and slime and whatever, fidget spinners and whatever you can use your hands for to kind of fidget or manipulate with, that can have and sometimes that can have a calming impact on your regulation system. So yes, they can help. But if you're kind of on the path to sort of like having a meltdown, it may not necessarily like be the thing that really kind of sets you back in the other direction to prevent it. But yes, they help to keep the level of alertness going throughout the day. Another question is, Is it okay to do speech therapy and OT at the same time? Yes, 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 yes. And if kids have both OT and speech needs, yes, yes, yes. Because, a lot of times if kids are dysregulated, then it's hard for them to participate in things that are hard, like speech. So you want to have an OT involved so that you can get that child's regulation state in the right place, so that then speech can come in and then work on their language activities without kids getting overwhelmed. And a lot of times speech therapists are versed in using a lot of sensory strategies. You'll see them do their sessions with kids like while they're on a swing, or they're using movement or deep pressure, like they might roll a ball on them, or they'll use and learn from OT those strategies that help kids regulate, and it will have a tremendous impact, and can have a tremendous impact on their ability to acquire language. Can my child outgrow sensory issues? Yeah, well, usually what happens is they get better over time. As kids get older, we get more information, they can tell us more, we learn more about them, we have all these strategies, we try different things. So, yes, usually, will they outgrow it completely? I think it's safe to say that we all have sensory processing challenges at any given point in any part of the day of our lives. It's, we're all sensory human beings, and sensory information is going to impact us for sure. So don't go thinking no, there's a population of people that don't have sensory issues. We all have sensory issues. We all have the ability to be impacted by different environments, and for those types of things to impact our day. The difference is whether or not your reactions to those sensory experiences are significant and intense enough that it actually might be considered a disorder, right? So yes, over time, what happens is we just learn more about individuals and their preferences, and how to change environments and how to accommodate for their needs, so that it definitely, absolutely becomes more manageable. What do you recommend for a child that puts no food items in their mouth? Chew necklaces didn't work. So that's the tricky part. I guess when I work with kids that are oral sensory seekers, if they're oral seekers, not everybody likes to put something in their mouth, right? Some people love chewing gum. They have, there's all sorts of things you can buy now, like chewy tubes and chewy necklaces, for those kids who are kind of those voracious chewers and like to put things in their mouth. I would say though, if it's a child that doesn't generally like to put things in their mouth, they're not going to choose to regulate in that way. So they have to be showing in the first place that they like oral sensory input to want to then use sensory input to regulate, if that makes sense. If you can try, if they're old enough, gum or mints, or sometimes food related things that are used very short term, that's why mints are good. They're really strong, but they dissolve real fast. A lot of people don't love gum because it obviously has the potential to be messy and be left behind. But kids are really good with learning about the rules of things. And if a sensory strategy really works for them, then they're going to pay attention to those rules, because they want that, if they want to use gum and you say, yes, you can use gum while you do your homework, but the gum has to stay at the table and it needs to stay in your mouth. Otherwise, if I don't see that, then the gum's going in the trash. And that child knows that sensory strategy helps them. Odds are they're going to keep the gum exactly where it should be and do the right thing with it. We find that often a lot. If it's being misused, then it's probably not an effective strategy, in which case you can say you tried it and then maybe try something else. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for being here today for our Facebook Live. If you're here and you had a question and we didn't get a chance to answer the question, or you're watching this later on and you weren't able to answer or ask questions live, then definitely, again, download the Wonder app. It's if you want to search for it, it's WUNDER. But again, we have a link that you can click that should be broadcasted through the program. And then go ahead in there and join the Ask an Expert Movement and Sensory Challenges group, or Sensory Challenges and Movement group, sorry. That's the group that I host. we are going to continue this conversation in the app. So there'll be a post within the app where you can then go in and you can ask all those specific questions that you have, and I'll answer them live. I'll answer them at some point for you within that post within the app. And that way, if you kind of like leave today and you're thinking about things and you have an idea for a question tomorrow, then that space for you within the app is always available for you to go in and answer, for experts to answer those questions. And then there's several different groups in there for you to join. There's 4 different Wonder experts. And so go ahead and, look through all the other groups that are available to you, because they're all related to different topics. And if you really enjoy these Facebook Lives, come back next week with Shira. She is another Wonder expert who's going to be doing a Facebook Live on reading and math challenges. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and I hope you have a great day.